We now know Liverpool FC as a huge global brand, but as a city it has been put on the map by music and culture and art, but probably most prominently around the world through football. 6 European Cups, 19 league titles, 7 FA Cups, 8 League Cups. Liverpool FC are one of the most successful clubs in world football. But how many of you know the full entire history of the club from March 1892 when Everton moved out of Anfield to Mohamed Salah now scoring and breaking records left, right and centre with every season that passes? How many of you know of that first ever team of just complete Scottish people, the team of Max, to the team now? Well, I'm going to try and cram the entire history of Liverpool into this one video, so yeah, if I do miss anything out, then do drop it in the comments below. I've done this for a few big teams around the country, Celtic and Rangers and stuff, and other ones as well, so yeah, as ever, if I do miss anything out, just stick it in the comments below. Look at this, we've got another lovely, sunny, nice day for it, but yeah, where better to tell you about the foundations of LFC than the very pub that they themselves were formed in. And yeah, here behind me is the Sandon pub, the pub where Liverpool were formed. I was going to have a pint and tell you about their early history, but they aren't open today. And here they are, look, on Houlding Street. The founder of Liverpool was called John Houlding. He has a bust next to the stadium just up here. So yeah, let's go down there, and that's where we will start talking about the early life of Liverpool FC. And here he is, the founder of LFC, John Houlding. Before we get into it, guys, please do remember to smash that like button, subscribe if you're new, and pass the vlog on to someone else. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Now, yeah, here is John Houlding, the owner of Anfield originally back in the 1800s, and a local team called Everton were playing here. And over a rental dispute, I think he tried to put up the prices. Everton said, "We're not playing here anymore, that's too expensive for us, we're going somewhere else." They went to Goodison Park. All John Houlding was left with was an empty stadium here opposite where he's looking right now, and that empty stadium he wanted to fill with a football team, his own football team, who he called Liverpool FC. And he started the club from the pub where we were earlier, just down the road down there, the Sandon. In Liverpool's first year, they joined the Lancashire League, and their first game was a friendly against Rotherham, and they beat them 7-1 with a team made up completely of Scottish people, and they became known as the team of Max. So yeah, I'm going to have to do a video eventually of the Scottish influence on Liverpool. Of course, it stretches from Andrew Robertson and who else? We've got Kenny Dalglish and Graham Souness, but all the way back to the first ever team with, yeah, the team of Max. All 11 were from Scotland, and the captain that day was a man called Andrew Hanna. Yes, he was the first ever captain of Liverpool from Renton in Dunbartonshire. I have made a Renton video before. Yeah, I've spoken about them a couple of times. They are a now extinct football team, but used to be legendary, and even played West Brom for the Championship of the World once, which I believe Andrew Hanna was a part of as well. So yeah, he was an absolute legend of the game in those early stages. And yeah, played in England and Scotland and was Liverpool's first ever captain. But amazing for me to see it come full circle, making vids about, you know, teams like Renton who aren't very well known, to now being here and speaking about Andrew Hanna, a former Renton player who was the captain of Liverpool in their first ever game. Liverpool won the Lancashire League at the first time of asking, and the next season were accepted into the Football League due to the resignation of the Football League of Bootle. In 1896, 4 years after the club's foundation, a Geordie by the name of Tom Watson became the manager of the club. Under his stewardship, Liverpool became Football League stalwarts and even won their first league title with him as the manager in 1901. He would lead Liverpool to a few top tier titles and a second tier championship as well, and would even get Liverpool to the much coveted FA Cup final in 1914, where they lost, sadly, against Burnley. To this day, Tom Watson remains the club's longest serving manager of 19 years. He was also the first man in England to lead 2 different clubs to the league title, the other being Sunderland. And here we go, look, all around Anfield you have these little benches which say the men who built Anfield, and now seems like the best time to sit on this one, Elijah Scott, while I tell you a little bit more about the club between What we were just talking about then, Tom Watson, the early league titles, and 1959 when the club's fortunes would change forever. Now I don't want to gloss over anything, but yeah, around the time of that first league title under Tom Watson, the Boer War, or the second Boer War rather, was raging in South Africa. A Liverpudlian fighter apparently died in a battle there on a steep hill called the Spion Kop, and that is why the steep stand here at Anfield also has the name the Kop to this day, also known by fans as the Spion Kop, or I've heard it called the Spion Kop before. I think that may be how you pronounce it in South Africa, where of course the Boer War was. But yeah, essentially the Kop is named after a big hill in South Africa where, you know, a lot of Liverpudlians, or a Liverpudlian soldier lost his life. I think there was a regiment of people all from Liverpool who fought in that war. There probably were a few, to be honest, and yeah, that name stuck for the stand here just due to that reason. So back to the football. In 1905 Liverpool won the second division, and 1906 they won the first division, becoming the champions of England for a second time. In 1914 Liverpool lost the FA Cup final against Burnley. That is Burnley's only FA Cup to this date. A year after the Burnley loss, Tom Watson died suddenly, the manager, and yeah, his reign here as Liverpool manager came to an end. After World War I, during the 1919-1920 season, yes, over 100 years ago now, King George V became the first reigning monarch to ever watch a game of football, and that was between Man City and Liverpool. In 1920 the Kop got refurbished to house 30,000 fans, making it the biggest stand in the country. During the 1922 and 1923 seasons, Liverpool won back-to-back titles, and this man here, Elijah Scott, missed only I think 3 games in that back-to-back title winning run, and yeah, the legendary goalkeeper was absolutely class. And look here, a quote from Dixie Dean: "The greatest I've ever seen. Inspired by the goalkeeping heroics of Elijah Scott, Liverpool FC, the dominant force in England during the early 1920s, were crowned Football League champions for a second consecutive season." There you go, backing up what I was saying there about Scott not really missing many games, and yeah, being part of the back-to-back winning seasons. It was around this time as well, in the 20s and 30s, that Gordon Hodgson, Liverpool's third highest scorer of all time, was banging them in for the Reds. Elijah Scott left the Reds in 1934, and he is still the longest serving player of Liverpool to this day. The Football League was cancelled during World War II, and but regional football leagues were still going on for players who were maybe coal miners. I've spoken about Jock Stein before. He was a coal miner, didn't fight in the war because he was a reserved occupation, so he could still play football, and that would have been the case here for Liverpool. But there was no national football at the time of the Second World War. It was more regional leagues, of which Liverpool won theirs. I believe they won the regional Northern League back in that time, or one of the regional competitions. Anyway, they might have won a few as well, but yeah, basically during World War II they were playing regionally instead of nationally. In the 1946-47 season, Liverpool were crowned champions. The first post-war season Liverpool won the league. It was around this time that another Liverpool legend was starting to play for the Reds, and his name was Billy Liddell. Reds fans around the world must have heard of the phrase Liverpool before. An absolute legend, a man from Fife. I've been to Fife before, made numerous Fife videos, and yeah, good to chat about him here now. One absolute legend of the club. I can't believe I'm brushing over so much stuff here. Billy Liddell and yeah, his era of the club could do with like a whole vlog of its own, basically. After the 1947 title though, Liverpool wouldn't finish higher than 8th for another 7 years. The 7th season resulted in them finishing 22nd and getting relegated from the top division. That was in 1954, and the relegation ended a run of 50 straight years in England's top flight. 8 seasons in the second division ensued, but it was some point around this 8 years in the second division, it was 1959, that Liverpool's fortunes would change forever. So yeah, a big turning point in the club's history was the appointment of Shankly in 1959, and he famously wanted to turn Liverpool into a bastion of invincibility. And yeah, you can see the Shankly statue over there, and yeah, the images that are just on screen just now. And I have made a Shankly specific video before. I've mentioned it a couple of times. I'll leave a link to it down below. So yeah, do go and check that out afterwards. I've been to where he was born and stuff like that. Amazing place, Glenbuck. Yeah, check it out. But yeah, at his time of arrival, the club had been in the second division for like 5 years and had even suffered an embarrassing defeat against Worcester City in the FA Cup. Anfield was reportedly a mess, and Shankly even described it and Melwood, the training ground, as a shambles. He overhauled the squad, releasing around 20 players, and even converted the legendary boot room into the amazing coaches and tactics room that we've seen over the years with other legendary managers like Paisley and King Kenny and all those kinds of people. It was around this time as well that Shanks bought Ian St John from Motherwell, and in 1962, after 8 years in the second division, Shankly finally got them promoted, and they've been in the top tier ever since. Roger Hunt began to emerge at this time as a Liverpool hero and was the top scorer for 8 seasons in a row. In 62 they got promoted from the second division, in 63 they came 8th, but in 64 they won the top tier title, winning it for the 6th time in the club's history. 1965 was the year that Liverpool finally lifted the elusive FA Cup, beating Leeds in the final. And yeah, I've got to take you somewhere to talk about this. 2 seconds. Yeah, so it had been Liverpool's first ever FA Cup win, 1965, and here is a mural to celebrate it. And Ian St John was the goal scorer that day, or the goal scorer of the winning goal at least. And look at this from Bill Shankly: that was the greatest moment of my life, winning the cup, not for me but for the people of Liverpool. Despite being such a massive club and winning the league even like before they won the cup, Liverpool hadn't won the FA Cup until 1965. That was some 94 years since the competition actually began. And yeah, it was Ian St John there on the left, who you can see there, who scored the winner that day. Shankly stayed at the Reds until 1974 and even guided them to their first European trophy in 1973. That was the UEFA Cup against Borussia Mönchengladbach, and yeah, Shank's idea of turning the Reds into a bastion of invincibility was starting to ring true. They were starting to become very successful. They'd won a UEFA competition, but he wanted them to be one of the prime clubs in Europe. He did win the UEFA Cup in 1973, but it would be his predecessor, the man who took over after him, that would lead the Reds finally to European glory at the highest level. And so in 1974, after coming runners-up in the league and winning the FA Cup for the second time, Bill Shankly retired, reportedly being quite tired of the work he'd put into the club. Former Liverpool player and assistant manager Bob Paisley took the reins from Shanks. I'm sure people were nervous for when he took over, but they shouldn't have been, because now look, he has a statue here in his honour. Bob Paisley spent just shy of a decade as manager here and won 6 league titles, 3 league cups, 6 charity shields, 3 European cups, the first manager to win 3 European cups, by the way, 1 UEFA Cup and 1 Super Cup. He is only one of 3 managers to this day to win 3 European Cups. The other 2 are Zidane and Ancelotti. Joe Fagan took over from Paisley and won the European Cup, and won a European Cup of his own in 1984, and Liverpool's 4th, in total. And that season that Joe Fagan won a European Cup of his own, he also won the league and the League Cup, and Ian Rush scored 47 goals. However, it would be the next season that would be remembered for more devastating reasons. I could tell you about Shanks and Paisley and Joe Fagan and the great football of the 70s and 80s, but at this point in the video I do need to touch on the Heysel and Hillsborough disasters. A collapsed wall and fan trouble resulted in the death of 39 people, 39 football fans, at the European Cup final in 1985 when Liverpool were playing Juventus. Now known as the Heysel disaster, of course, for the stadium that it was played in Brussels, in Belgium. The trouble and the fallout of that meant that English clubs couldn't compete in Europe for the best part of half a decade. Liverpool did finish champions in this time and yeah, missed out on competing in the European Cup, but there was also teams that had won the League Cup who should have been playing in the UEFA Cup and competitions like that. You look at Oxford United and Luton Town. Everton even should have got into Europe a few times with how well they did in that point. But yeah, it was obviously just a tragedy, and we should remember the people who died on that awful day in Brussels. And there is a memorial to that here at Anfield as well. But I'm just coming round now to the Hillsborough Memorial, and there is a little bit of work going on just above it. But here we are now at one of the most famous football memorials in the world. At Sheffield Wednesday Stadium, Hillsborough, on the 15th of April in 1989, Liverpool played Forest in the FA Cup semi-final, and 96 fans would lose their lives. 96 Liverpool supporters died, and it was due to gross negligence by the police and ambulance services that day, and families of the 96 have had to fight for decades for justice for their loved ones. There have been disasters in English football history, and I don't mean to compare them in the slightest, but the Hillsborough disaster is probably the most well known around the world. The 96 will always be remembered by the people of Liverpool, whether you're blue or red. And you can even see that, look, there's even Man United shirts down here This is where rivalries get put aside, and yeah, we just remember the people who sadly died that day. There's a Villa hat down there. You often see some Everton stuff. There's a West Brom shirt over there. I hope you're enjoying this video and that I do a good job at telling you the history of Liverpool Football Club from the good to the bad. And yeah, this video is in memory of those who died during the Heysel and the Hillsborough disasters. And here we go, look, more the men who built Anfield, and this time look, Kenny Dalglish, the man who led Liverpool through their darkest hour during Hillsborough. Liverpool did actually go on to win the 1989 FA Cup final in an emotional final versus Everton around a month after the Hillsborough disaster. Kenny was now the manager, and yeah, in the 89-90 season, Liverpool won their 18th league title, and that was the most by far out of any English club. Little did we know how long Liverpool would have to wait for another one. In the 32 years between Shanks in 59 and King Kenny in the early 90s, Liverpool had just 4 managers. But in the last 30 years, Liverpool have had 9 managers. The 3 seasons after Kenny left, Liverpool finished 6th, 6th and 8th, leading to a period of instability for the club during the 90s. Liverpool went through quite a bad stage during the 90s and early 2000s, winning just 1 League Cup in around 8 years. By the 2000-2001 season, Gerrard Houlier had assembled a team of older, experienced pros and youngsters who were coming through here at the club. Liverpool won the treble of the UEFA Cup, the FA Cup and the League Cup in the 00-01 season, with future legends like Steven Gerrard and Jamie Carragher coming through, and Michael Owen. Say it quietly, since he went to United. You hear the likes of Carragher and Stevie speak so highly of Gerrard Houlier, and he really laid the foundations for what was to come for Liverpool in the next like 10-20 years. So post Houlier, we've obviously had Rafa, and then Dalglish again, Hodgson, Rodgers and Klopp. So we've had a couple of managers over the past, you know, like few decades or decade and a half or whatever when Houlier left. But yeah, Houlier really laid the foundations for, you know, Rafa's Champions League winning side, and from all accounts what he did was modernise the club, and yeah, brought in better systems when it came to fitness and professionalism and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think the club has a lot to thank Houlier for. In the last sort of 15-16 years, Liverpool have gone on to win 2 more European Cups, 1 Premier League title, the first in of course 30 years, as well as numerous other cups and League Cups, Super Cups and that kind of stuff. There's been more finals, League Cup finals that we've lost against City, and Europa League final that we lost against Seville, of course. So, you know, it's been a mixed bag for Liverpool, but I think most fans would have taken 2 Champions Leagues and a Prem, maybe at the start of the decade, or at the start of the century, rather. But yeah, from John Houlding and Tom Watson in the 1800s to John Henry and Jurgen Klopp in 2021. I hope I've covered enough about the history and, yeah, haven't missed too many things out. But if I have, let me know in the comments below. What are your favourite LFC memories? Do let me know below. Please do remember to smash that like button and subscribe if you're new. I'll leave some videos around my head as ever, so you can keep watching my content. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.